Godzilla has appeared in a lot of things, from video games to commercials promoting pudding, to manifesting physically on your shelf as a plastic toy or two. I don't even remember buying these. New toys keep appearing on my shelf whenever I'm not looking. Please send help! And the subject of today's video is Godzilla's presence in printed media, comic books. Now, I've read a couple runs from Godzilla's comic book career, mainly IDW's insane output, but I'd still consider comics my blind spot. I'm more intimately familiar with the movies, so I'm more equipped to give you an in-depth rundown of the plot of Godzilla's Revenge than I am to tell you what a Batragon is, for now at least. For this video series, I plan on going through all the Godzilla comics released in the United States. But with that mission statement, I feel the need to say that the title for this series is a little misleading. If you consider Japanese manga comics, then no, I won't be covering those, for a couple reasons. Not only are most Godzilla manga straight up not translated, but some are still being discovered to this day. So if I tried to cover all the Godzilla manga, then it wouldn't exactly be comprehensive, because some Godzilla manga that adapted one of the movies recently gets discovered or something. The point of this exercise is to see how Godzilla has been depicted in Western comics, how they helped shape the pop cultural identity of the character, and how they eventually changed to match the movie depictions. And most importantly of all, I just want to have a good time. Like seriously, if you've never read the Godzilla comics, they get wild. You have no idea what you're in for. Keep in mind, I am not an expert on the medium, but maybe I can learn a little. I'm mainly here to give my impressions of these books as a casual reader. I'll be giving a slight recap of what the comic is, then I'll be reviewing it. This naturally means I'll be spoiling a thing or two, but I'll make sure to leave out a couple surprises just in case you want to read these for yourself. It's a long journey, more densely packed when we get closer to modern day because of all the IDW stuff, so I'm here to entertain. One more thing, credit where it's due. Most if not all of the scans you're about to see come from Wikizilla, so thank you. I'm trying to keep the intro here short, so let's just start from the beginning. Humbly enough, Godzilla's comic career starts with a very short 4-page promotional comic for the 1976 American release of Godzilla vs. Megalon. If you've seen the film's US trailer, this comic reads like a Cliff Notes adaptation of that, more so than the movie.
Godzilla and his powerful ally, Robot Man.
It introduces all the monsters and does some weird revisionism to the story. In the comic, Megalon appears, Godzilla has to fight both him and Gigan alone, then Jet Jaguar arrives to save his friend. In the actual movie, Megalon appears, Jet Jaguar is controlled by the bad guys to lead him around, he breaks free of their control, he goes to Monster Island to request Godzilla's aid, he fights Megalon and Gigan alone, then Godzilla arrives and he does an internet meme.
Punch, punch, punch!
Here the roles are switched around, and more pressingly, so are the names. Gigan is called Borodan now, a name change I can't even begin to justify. Jet Jaguar is also given the name
Robot Man.
The list of minor differences goes on, but at the end of the day, this thing was made exclusively to sell kids on the movie, and it shows.
What the fuck is that?
Much of the art is traced directly from the movie, and the anatomy of the characters shifts wildly once the tracing stops. I guess some things never change. I do love the sensational narration written for this book. You know, it was probably written by marketing people, so you get colorful descriptors like the boorish might of Megalon, and my personal favorite, colossal hell-spawned misanthropoid. It's cheesy as hell. There's not much else to say here. The comic is a funny little throwback. You'd be dedicating, at most, 90 seconds of your life to reading it.
Remember kids, always buy your indie comics and pirate your Marvel comics.
Okay, here's the big one, the main event, the more time-consuming one. From 1977 to 1979, Marvel Comics would produce their own Godzilla series set within the Marvel Universe. The panel from the first issue sums it up. Godzilla has just arrived in North America. With a vengeance. The first issue starts how you'd expect. Underwater tests in 1956 awakened Godzilla from his nap, so he attacks Japan before disappearing until the 70s, ready to swipe at more buildings with his swole as fuck hands. Like seriously, Marvel Godzilla is built. Now that Godzilla is more properly defined as a creature that spews blue atomic energy from his mouth in pop culture, it's more charming to look back at previous Western depictions like this that gave him green skin and fire breath. And that was the perception for a while, that he was a giant green T-Rex that spit fire. And because the Hanna-Barbera series was airing around the same time and had a similar looking Godzilla, it's easy to see how the pop cultural perception would change to match that. It's not true to the source material, but I do think it's a fun look, even if he seems to change proportions in every panel. Must be one of his powers. Also, he looks weird when he's facing forward. One of my tenets for good Godzilla designs is if they look okay when facing the camera. From here, the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are called in, and eventually have to form a dedicated group to dealing with them, a group dubbed the Godzilla Squad. I wonder if this influenced later media, or if an anti-Godzilla team is just an inevitability, and Marvel happened to get to it first. That's the fun of exploring new territory like this. I see things that may have been seeds for what would blossom later.
It's Godzilla! He'll save us!
What's unique about this run compared to others in this journey is that it's tied to a larger comic book universe. So we're introduced to established characters like Nick Fury and pals rather casually. And because of the loose nature of the storytelling, it means these superhero characters aren't going to stick around to fight Godzilla every time. And Godzilla doesn't fight the characters you'd know right away either. No, it takes a while to get to Spider-Man. This was when Marvel was throwing new conceptual shit at the wall, so Godzilla has to fight D-listers like the Champions first, and throw away villains first introduced in this comic like Dr. Demonicus.
Freeze, black man.
Anyways, a character named Dum Dum Dugan, yes that's his actual name, is in charge of the Godzilla Squad, so you see a lot of him here. Debuting in Nick Fury's comic, this factoid I ripped straight from Wikipedia tells me that this character has been in the Marvel canon for a very long time. I think he's the one to coin the nickname The Big G too. This is the earliest mention of it I can find at least. I thought the fandom came up with that one, but no. It's Dum Dum Dugan as written by Doug Munch. Evidently, Big Baby never caught on. I don't know if that's a shame or if we should be grateful it didn't.
Well, I'll be hornswoggled by old Scratch yourself.
It's like interpreting another language.
Blasted bozo hog in the sky forced me to swerve right into that thing's big fat puss.
Okay then, I didn't know Godzilla was female. Not that there's anything wrong with that, I just didn't know.
That does it. I don't care whether he called me a jerk or not. Nobody steps on Gabe Jones's puss.
Oh, he means mouth.
Now, if this works, it'll leave Godzilla with the horny one.
Dugan does make for an entertaining character, even if half of his screen time, would that actually be like page time, is spent belly aching at his friend Gabe because they're always just a little too late to stop Godzilla. As the comic progresses, Godzilla starts facing off against the characters you would expect from Marvel, like the Fantastic Four and the original Avengers. He also starts doing battle with some original monsters. Now that's more like it. I like seeing comic original kaiju. But there are more issues focusing on Godzilla fighting the Godzilla Squad and the super robot Red Ronin. Also, some of the goobers here aren't very creative. Lepirax is just a discount Mothra. When they make fake bullshit versions of existing characters, it just makes me wish that those characters were used instead. I mean, Mothra would be horribly out of character here if she was used, but you know what I mean. The alien monsters like the Beta Beast and the Mega Monsters are obvious exceptions. I mean, they look like that. They can't not be memorable. Honorable mention goes to the New York Rat Godzilla fights when he gets shrunk down by Ant-Man's shrinking dust. Oh yeah, Godzilla gets shrunken down and he has some tiny adventures. He not only fights a rat, but he also starts growing again, and he cements a friendship with Red Ronin's pilot, Rob. And he goes undercover, like he's put in a trench coat. I know some fans would be weird about Godzilla's size getting reduced. Based on the fan letters featured in issue 23, it seems like some were. But I don't know, I kinda like it. It's entertaining seeing this ironic situation where, for once, Godzilla is smaller than everyone else. I mentioned Red Ronin earlier, so I should probably talk about this thing more. It's a pretty big part of the comic, until it isn't. A super robot like this is actually a first for the Godzilla series. Sure, you've got Mechagodzilla and Jet Jaguar, but Ronin draws from conventions established by older Tokusatsu television series like Giant Robo, also called Johnny Socko and His Flying Robot. Both Ronin and Giant Robo are controlled by a kid, though Ronin differs by requiring Rob to control the robot from within. That's the method of control anime and manga of the time we're transitioning towards. I like the robot well enough, but the character should be just as good as the robot. In fact, the robot should be a vehicle for the character. That's the balance a lot of anime and manga strive to achieve when they have the protagonist directly piloting the robot. If you want something truly compelling, then the person piloting the robot has to be interesting, you know? And unfortunately, I think Rob is rather flat as a character. He's one of those kid characters you'd see in a Gamera movie defending the monster no matter what it did. But here there's a little growth because he eventually learns that he can't just be a pacifist in every encounter. Then he goes back to begging the Godzilla squad to stop bothering him. They really could have done more with this character. He has it better than the other original characters in this comic, who are incredibly underwritten. They're very much sidelined in favor of focusing on the escapades of the existing superheroes.
Please, Godzilla, don't hurt them. They're not really mean. They're just crazy Americans who don't understand that a monster doesn't have to be a monster.
As for Godzilla himself, his depiction in these comics harkens back to the origins of the character. A victim of atomic weapons whose destructive tendencies are the result of his rage. And something hubris of humanity. You get the gist. We see this described bluntly in the first issue. When Godzilla rips up an oil pipeline, the narration uses this moment to highlight that America's vampiric thirst will have to wait for now. And while the films would eventually turn Godzilla into this sort of anti-hero who straight up becomes a superhero, with a couple exceptions, Godzilla's rage and its colorful descriptions extend throughout the comic's run, and that is the best part of this comic. The descriptions and the narration are oozing with sensationalist writing, and I like moments like this where the narration transitions into the dialogue. It's something you'd see in a movie.
So far, there is no apparent motive for the bizarre creature's actions. We can only speculate. But as I watch its slow but deliberate, almost stately approach, I find myself wondering, just how intelligent is this beast? Wait, he's coming closer now. He's going to... Yes, he has just struck the second major American city in a week. This is no longer a mere news drama, but now a situation of life and death. Even as I speak, I'm running with the rest of the news crew to avoid being trampled.
Moments like Red Ronin nearly stepping on an oil tanker work because it feels like the pacing of the story is being deliberately halted by the narration boxes, which helps with building tension. Doug Munch is credited as the writer of the whole series, so good job. Like, yeah, the story is a little loose, but the moment-to-moment writing is generally solid. But yeah, Godzilla's character, the narration gives his actions personality, and it seems like he only attacks when he's enraged. Sometimes it seems like he attacks at random, though. Maybe he just hates people and what they've done to him. The narration there suggests there's no method to his madness, and he just randomly decides to throw tantrums. At least that's how the issue in Las Vegas is handled. Like the roll of the die, it's random. He also helps people when they haven't done anything wrong to him, like the Inuit slaves in issue 4. It's like the writers wanted to have the raging destructive force seen in the early movies and the benevolent superheroes seen in the early 70s. An anti-hero, if you will. Strangely, Godzilla seems to tap into his inner Gamera here, and he starts to care about Rob. The aim with the character is confused early on, but by the end his motivations are spelled out a little clearer. Rob is the only thing he cares about, and he'll calm down if Rob talks to him.
Can a monster smile? Does Godzilla smile now? Perhaps.
What isn't clear is why anyone would doubt Godzilla existed when there's likely non-stop news coverage of him, and he destroys at least 3 major landmarks. The Thing clearly doesn't watch as much television as he claims. Gotta say, they interrupt the pace of the story every time, but the excessive print ads in these old Marvel issues greatly enhance the reading experience. Just seeing all this weird crap that got advertised back in the day. I'm also kind of nostalgic for these. I used to read Marvel comics from around this era because my dad collected them, and I remember seeing stuff like this. Some of these are just bizarre. At last, you can fly, Spider-Man! That's what I said when I saw you can glide in the new game. Lose 9 pounds in 2 days. I don't know, I don't really trust ghouls with giving good dieting advice. Now, the amazed, energized Spider-Man! So energized he's gone completely stiff! Other highlights include an ad for the 70s Invasion of the Body Snatchers remake, Hulk getting brainwashed into eating Hostess cupcakes, and an ad for the Fantastic Four cartoon that doesn't have Human Torch in it. Yes, that was a thing. Look it up.
Now together with Herbie the Robot, the newest member of the group, they have become the greatest team of superheroes the world has ever known.
And here are some highlights from the comic since I don't know where to put these. Marvel's version of Hercules manages to topple Godzilla by lifting his foot. In issue 4, they name-drop the severely underrated cult indie darling Star Wars.
You're trying my patience, R2. You can't wear a backpack, you haven't got a back.
Wow!
Godzilla travels through space after stumbling through a wormhole. He fights a bug monster before joining a race called the Betas to fight for them in a war against their rivals named, the Megan.
Megan!
They use a device that lets them talk to Godzilla to tell him to defend the Earth against Planet Megan's monsters. They talk to Godzilla. Their rivals are called Megan. I can't get over this. In issue 17, we learn that Godzilla is vegetarian. I mean, alright, I can buy it. He straight up fights Bigfoot halfway through the run. Towards the end of the run, they start incorporating more famous Marvel characters like the Fantastic Four, and those make for some pretty fun issues. In the next issue, Mr. Fantastic sends Godzilla back in time, so, you know, it has that going for it. I've got a note here that says, mentioned that he teamed up with the Devil Dinosaur, who got a new series recently, so include this part to make it sound like you know what you're talking about. The most famous moments in this series come from the final 2 issues, when Godzilla fights the Avengers. It's so funny that it took 23 issues and the Human Torch interrupting their game of Monopoly for them to do anything about Godzilla. I mean, Tony Stark was bankrolling the giant robot, but he's been such a non-entity until now. By now it's obvious that this little arc was a Hail Mary because every other storyline introduced in this comic either doesn't get concluded, got terribly rushed, or outright ignored. Red Ronin doesn't even get one more shot at Godzilla, he just disappeared halfway through. I mean, in fairness, he got his head chopped off, but like, he's a robot, you can fix him. But the entire comic is so much fun that I didn't really mind how slapdash this finale was. At the very end, almost to bid him farewell from the Marvel Universe, Spider-Man shows up late to take a picture. What I want to know is, where the hell was he? Was he too busy shilling Twinkies or something? Ah well, he was probably dealing with depression. That seems like something Spider-Man would do at the time. You could argue he's not really equipped to fight Godzilla, but I don't think Dum Dum Dugan is either. And I just read a whole comic proving that.
Where's that blasted Peter Parker? Never around when you need him. Get me a camera, I'll take the pictures myself. Where are the police? Why aren't they doing anything about this giant menace? Watch it, you overgrown lizard! You're messing with Jonah Jameson here! Uh-oh.
Marvel's Godzilla run is zany as hell. I'm not too familiar with what Marvel was up to in the late 70s, but I'd imagine this was one of their weirder runs.
Cheeseburger.
It is extremely entertaining. There's just the right balance of action and story per issue, the characters and situations and dialogue are ridiculous. The monsters Godzilla fights are hit or miss, but the fights themselves are pretty neat. The art is delightfully retro and of its time. I had a blast reading these. It's a lot of the insanity from the Showa movies distilled into comic form, with a fun universe full of pre-existing goofballs. Peak Godzilla media, just cream of the crop, best of the best, check it out. If it wasn't the movies, then I'd imagine this was how a lot of kids were introduced to the character. Toho even used the character card seen on every cover page for their Godzilla trademark icon. Weirdly, they never seem to re-up their deal with Marvel. Technically untrue since Marvel is re-releasing these comics soon. Oops. and it left Godzilla's presence in the comic universe in a bad place, because Marvel's editors seemingly wanted to keep using him as a similar character appeared in his place. Yeah, it's weird. They bring him back in a short Iron Man run, without ever directly naming him for copyright reasons. He even got mutated by Dr. Demonicus to look different. Yeah, didn't expect them to bring that dipshit back. They also brought back this fake Godzilla in a Thing comic book, also legally not him. They do actually call this thing Godzilla in like one panel, but it's phrased in such a way where there's still plausible deniability in court where you could say, oh, this thing isn't actually Godzilla, we're just using the Godzilla name to refer to something really big. Please don't sue us. It's a weird situation.
Run! It's Godzilla! It looks like Godzilla, but due to international copyright laws, it's not. Still, we should run like it is Godzilla! Though it isn't.
I skimmed those issues, and I think you can make the case that isn't Godzilla, and he could still make a comeback if Marvel got the rights again. But if this is the fate of the character, then damn, what a pathetic way to go out. Becoming the lapdog of some D-lister like Dr. Demonicus? I would much prefer if issue 24 was his final moment. He's apparently reappeared in tiny, legally hazy cameos since then. They actually removed the scoots in a later version of this page. So it's nice that his final moments weren't him in a horribly disfigured form being mind-controlled by a racist. But still, comic books get a lot of flack for not letting characters stay dead or out of the limelight. God knows how many retcons there are to Spider-Man. So maybe it's for the best that Godzilla's story ends here. I might as well clear up some misinfo while I'm here. I was talking with my friend Humble Squid after they gave me their line recordings, and they brought up how this character, Leviathan, is commonly mistaken for Godzilla. There's misinformation going around that this is Godzilla but mutated again. In actuality, this is a brand new character. The only connection between it and Godzilla is that it was created by a character from the original Marvel run. It's clearly an homage, but that's all it is. So if you thought it was Godzilla, don't worry, his fate is not to look like a creature that had its face smashed in. One more dip into Marvel's kaiju history, it's tangentially related, I swear. In Fantastic Four issue 347, there are a couple baffling cameos. See that guy? That's Megalon from Ultra 7. Antler can be seen on the next page too. But yeah, time to move on. There's a dark horse on the horizon. And that's a horizon I will peek over next time. I originally wanted to make this video cover everything before IDW, but I figured stopping at the end of the 70s made sense. I also wanted to put out something substantial in January, so YouTube would actually pay me this month. Teehee. Next time I'll be talking about Charles Barkley, so look forward to it. Special thanks to Humble Squid and Dickard T for providing the voice acting in this video. And now a shout out to my top patrons who help make videos like this one extra possible. Lobotomy Blues, Cool Bell Zero, Pack Jeff, Johnny Hedgewolf, Eric Guzda, Jumpality Tinglefoogle, Jonos Firewalker, Easterman, Macho Mantis, Jackson Flint, Manila Fan, Sampai, Golden Maid Be an Ultraman Fan, Navek 15, Jacob Hinch, Dude Bro, Alistair Gilmore, Seamus Kelly, Anonymous Euronymous 1349, Fujoshi Urinal, Grazio, Mulan Nguyen, Irrelevant 402, Heya Mooney, Krazak 53, Komen, Queer Kaiju, Chronicler Waba, Alcoholic Alligators, Ryan Santa Cruz, Avak Robot, The Antagonist, Godzilla Rich, It's Godz, Big Odilo, An Actual Dimetrodon, CMG, Red Comet Harry, and Marpzilla. Thank you all very much.